This episode contains descriptions of violence against children. Listener discretion is advised.
You're having a good time on the couch with your friends. You're having a good time in the bed alone. You're having a good time watching TV. Let us ruin your day. Yay!
Welcome to Now It's Ruined, the podcast for people who hate enjoying things. I'm Kate Bridle.
And I'm Larkin Harrington.
And this is part one of our first two-part episode. We are making a two-part Mother's Day special. Originally, it was all going to be one episode, but then I got really long-winded with my research and was like, I tried to cut it back, and then we were both talking about it, and we just said, you know what, screw it. We're going to split it up, and that'll be fun. And now you all get a whole entire extra episode this week. So we'll put this one out on Wednesday as usual, and then we will put out our second one on Thursday. So you'll get them back-to-back days, and we'll be celebrating moms in our own grim way.
Gruesome way. And they both
Yes.
deserve their own.
That is true. And we'll talk more about it in a minute. But yes, they're kind of like symmetrical stories, but very different. So we're excited. We hope that you like it. It's not really necessarily a traditional Now It's Ruined in that we're, picking a thing and telling you why you shouldn't enjoy it. But it is still going to be depressing and bleak. And so I do think we're still ruining Mother's Day in our own unique and special way.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. You're not going to feel good. So.
No, you're not. And we thought about doing a traditional ruin, like how can we ruin motherhood, basically, like talk about all the terrible things that can happen during pregnancy. But we just did the chainsaws episode, so that felt a little like, I thought about doing the chainsaws episode actually for Mother's Day.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Or like talk about, in this economy, being a mom, all of that stuff, which would be very appropriate given the White House's new stance on trying to get us all to have babies or whatever.
Oh
which
my
I can't
God.
even, yeah.
That might just be too much for me.
Exactly. And in the end, we felt like that was a little harsh for Mother's Day, even for us. Like, we don't want to bash moms.
No, there's no mom bashing here.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to split this up. So one part might be longer than the other, but, whatever. That's how it's going to be. Tell your moms, tell your enemies about this special. And as an extra bonus, part two won't have any housekeeping. We'll just dive right in because we'll do all the housekeeping on this episode. And then you just get to the good stuff.
The nitty gritty.
Yeah.
And mine's really on the nitty gritty side.
This one, you do have to listen to housekeeping, sorry. But it's like fun, positive stuff for the most part, I think. Okay, so first off, we officially have enough patrons to cover our monthly expenses, which is so exciting.
Hell yeah.
Our monthly expenses have changed a little bit from the beginning just because we made some switches. But we're covered now. So great. Thank you all so much. And the person who put us over the edge is a new paid member who we will be thanking at the end of this episode. So stick around for that shout out. And as a reminder, when we get 666 patrons of any level, including unpaid, on Patreon, we will do an 80s photo shoot and share the craziness with you and let you vote on which of the pictures should be our new cover art. So spread the word. Come over and join our Patreon if you haven't already. We also just set up a group chat for paid members over there as just another fun way to connect. So check it out. And also, we know that you have been hearing maybe some ads on our episodes. If you think that means that we are rolling in dough and we don't need the Patreon support, I'm afraid that is just not true. We haven't even seen any money yet. I think when we do, it's going to be like 30 cents. You got to be really, really big for ad revenue to pay off. And we're not there yet. We're hoping someday it really will. But for now, Patreon is our main source of support. So please go help us because, we want to do stuff like upgrade our mics. And also, as another bonus over on Patreon, if you are into the video version of podcasts, you can always watch the video version over there and also on YouTube. Finally, I just wanted to say that it has been super fun to see all the different locations that our listeners are in. It's
so
been
wild.
So cool. Yeah, and we're baffled by some of them. We have no idea who you are, which is really weird and wild. We've got folks in Portugal, the UK, Ireland, Canada, Japan, and as of today, Australia.
Hello,
Australia. We love you. But I think we're most surprised by the country that ranks second to the United States in our listenership, South Africa. We have no idea who you are, little South African contingent, but we love you. And you're obviously kind of spreading the word about us because our numbers there keep going up and it's just clearly not one person. So
right. And we have an idea of who would be, spreading the word in Washington or, California, all those places. But somehow they found us there. I don't know. We can't place
Yeah.
anybody.
Like but even in the States too, like we have Kentucky.
Yeah.
No idea.
What?
There are a few
What?
states that we're like, we don't know, but we love you all. We're so appreciative. It's been overwhelming, honestly. Like, we can't believe it. And so please continue to spread the word, tell your friends, tell your enemies, and please rate and review us as well. Thank you so, so much to those of you who have already left us some really lovely reviews. But please, if you haven't already, rate and review, because that helps us spread around as well. Okay, so as I said, today and tomorrow will be our Mother's Day special. What we decided to do is do like a little story swap. So I am going to talk about a good mom from history, and then Larkin is going to talk about a not so good mom. We don't want to necessarily say bad mom, but you'll see. You'll see. It's a rough one.
You'll get the vibe.
And yeah, it's going to be, it's our first foray into true crime also, which I'm excited for. We have a couple of other episodes where we have ideas for how we might be able to do a little true crimey stuff, but this is our first time, so hopefully we don't fuck it up. I don't know.
I don't know. I'll botch it.
We'll be fine.
Ruin it.
No, you won't. So so for this first episode, I'm going to talk about a good mom, but don't worry, even my good mom story is grim as hell, so you won't be disappointed. It'll still be ruined. And then in tomorrow's episode, Larkin will tell us our not so good mom story. I think my good mom story might be more depressing than Larkin's not so good mom story in many ways.
In many ways, I think, especially you'll see.
Oh yeah, you don't even know how.
I don't know. But I mean, I know who she is, so I can already kind of go, it's not going to be happy, great, fun times, and it's going to make me sad. And I mean, I'm sad with my mom. Like, her story makes me really sad, but I know that this is gonna hit me right in all of my parts. Real hard.
They're sad in different ways, and there are, as I said, a lot of kind of parallels. So both of these stories are mother-son stories, and both feature mothers who are going to great lengths to save their children. But as you will see, they went about it in very different ways. Those methods are what are making us distinguish good mom and not so good mom. So this makes me feel like do you watch Great British Bake Off?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know why I even had to ask that. It feels
I don't either.
Horrifying. But you know, like how at the end one of them gets to announce Star Baker and the other one has to say who's going home. That's how I feel. Is I'm like, I get the lovely job of getting to talk to you about a good mom, and you've got the rotten job of having
rotten job. Yep, I do, and I like it.
I know. Good thing we like rotten jobs. So yes, I have the pleasure of talking about a good mom, and the mom I am going to be talking about is ass-kicking, slavery-escaping, inspirational speech-giving, abolitionist, and women's rights crusader Sojourner Truth. By the way, she was also nearly 6 feet tall.
What?
And
okay, I didn't know that.
I know. Which makes her just cooler to me. I don't know why. And I think I was surprised because, pictures of her are mostly from like later in her life after she really got into the suffrage scene. And she has like little glasses, and she always looks just kind of, very modest, and which she was deeply religious. And she, I don't know, just always looked very like reserved and unassuming to me. But so it's so.
And probably sitting, right? Like.
That's also true. Yeah, usually she's sitting.
They're like, sit, please.
Sit, Sojourner. We don't have a camera tall enough to capture you. Even the men aren't this tall. Also, I just want to say I am focusing on a very specific part of her life that's after she escaped slavery. So I am going to talk a little bit about her time in slavery, but it's just not really my focus. So I'm not trying to dismiss or gloss over any of that portion of her history, but I only have so much time, and I want to focus on this kind of less known part that I think is really cool, and the part that's kind of more to do with our Mother's Day theme. So if you look up Sojourner Truth, you'll get about a bazillion hits back. She's very famous. Many of those hits are going to be about her famous Ain't I a Woman speech, which she delivered at a women's convention in Akron, Ohio in 1851. She got this opportunity because of a memoir that she published. So she never learned to read or write, but she dictated a memoir to this other woman named Olive Gilbert, who helped get it published. And that memoir is called The Narrative of Sojourner Truth. And most of the information that I got for this episode is from that memoir. It's available to read for free, lots of places. It's not very long. It's like 200 pages. I will link to it in the show notes.
Wow.
Yeah. So most of this is her own words as, written down by someone else.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's very awesome. Like, I was just so excited to have that resource. So the publication of this novel gave her money to live off of and also national fame, which is how she got to meet women's rights activists Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony. She also already knew Frederick Douglass from a while back, so she is hanging with the big names in abolition and women's rights from those days. But interestingly, apparently she and Frederick Douglass split because he wanted to prioritize suffrage for formerly enslaved men, and she thought that it should happen simultaneously with women's suffrage. So they had a parting of ways. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And when I read that, I immediately gave Frederick Douglass the benefit of the doubt. I was like, I'm sure he was just trying to be practical. And yes, that was the case. Like, he was basically being pragmatic. He was saying, we need to focus on what we can get done as quickly as we can. And they are not even letting the white ladies vote yet. So, like, and he did still campaign tirelessly for women's suffrage while he was campaigning for men's suffrage as well. But Sojourner, she was like, it's not good enough, man. Like, do it at the same time. Equality.
Yeah.
Which I respect.
And power to her. Yeah, for that.
But I was like, please don't have ruined Frederick Douglass for me, Sojourner Truth.
Please, please.
But he's not. He's not ruined. Still died doing what he loves, sticking up for ladies.
Can't fault him for that.
That's right. It's a drunk history quote, in case anyone doesn't know. So after the book was published, she did a book tour. And one of the stops was this women's conference in Akron, Ohio, which is where she delivered her famous Ain't I a Woman speech. And in it, she pointed out that men liked to say that women shouldn't vote because they're weak and, we have to help them into carriages. How can they possibly be expected to vote? And she was like, nobody's ever helped me into a carriage, and I'm a woman and I am still alive. So sounds like you're full of shit, pretty much.
I've managed to get this far with my vagina. So
I've not fallen apart. Yeah, she basically was pointing out the hypocrisy of men putting their livelihoods on the backs of Black women and then turning around and saying that they're too weak to vote. And all women in general. She was saying it for all women, but was particularly pointing out the irony of saying, oh, women are weak when we're having them do all of this intense labor. So there are plenty of places that you can read the Ain't I a Woman speech. And as I said, it's not really the part of her life that I'm focusing on. The part that I want to talk about happened nearly 3 decades earlier, not at a women's convention, but in a courtroom, which is why I wanted to nerd out about it. Because for those who don't know, I am technically still an attorney. I'm still licensed. I'm just not practicing. And so when I saw this was law related, I was like, ooh, okay, I'll do that. Sojourner Truth was born Isabella Baumfree in 1797. She changed her name to Sojourner Truth much later in her life in 1843, but that's what I'm going to call her because that's the name she chose for herself. She was born to James and Betsy, who were enslaved by Colonel Hardenberg in a predominantly Dutch county of New York, so another reason not to warm to the Dutch.
Another reason.
The whole county spoke Dutch, so Sojourner Truth actually grew up speaking Dutch, and she spoke English with a Dutch accent throughout her life, which I never knew. And is really interesting.
I'm realizing I know so little. That's incredible. Okay. Ooh, I'm buckled in.
Yeah. And so because her accent was this very specific Afro-Dutch accent, it's actually been lost to time. We don't really know how she would have sounded, but the Sojourner Truth Project did a really cool thing where they got a bunch of Afro-Dutch women to read her Ain't I a Woman speech in their dialects. And so they're all kind of slightly different because they're different women from different parts, different Afro-Dutch backgrounds.
Yeah.
And it's just really fascinating. I will drop a link to that in the show notes. It's really cool to listen to.
Just to get an idea. That's rad.
Yeah, I loved that when I found it. Sojourner Truth was bought and sold 4 times in her life. She was obviously subjected to many horrible circumstances. She was beaten. She was kept in the bitter cold. She lost children. Many other horrendous things that you can read about in detail in her autobiography. She was also treated like ass by a white girl that one of the slave owners employed, who unfortunately was named Kate and apparently was a real dick. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. She was like, I'm a white servant, so I'm better. Like, just the worst. The worst.
Of course.
Real bitch. So yes, all of that you can read about in more detail. But let's get to her motherhood. So she was eventually married to a fellow slave named Thomas, who had been married apparently twice before. And I did not know this, but apparently when enslaved people were sold, they were, frequently ripped from whoever they had married at the last place they were. And they were encouraged by their new owners to marry, I assume, so they'll have babies and make more people for these slave owners to buy and sell. And so Thomas had been forcibly separated from 2 prior wives and now was like, well, now marry Sojourner Truth. Or marry someone. I don't know if they picked who they were supposed to marry, but they were like, get married, get married, get married. And I never knew that. And it really fucked me up when I read it. That extra layer of
control and
torture.
Emotional torture.
Yep. Have children with them. No guarantee you'll ever see any of them again. At any day, any moment, you could be ripped away from them. And then we're going to make you do it again.
Do it again.
Over and over.
No.
New York actually had already decreed emancipation in 1799, which is just a couple of years after Sojourner Truth was born, but it was a gradual abolition law, so it wasn't like overnight, everybody's free. My guess is they did that not to fuck the economy because so many industries depended on the labor of enslaved people, and if you take all of them away at once, the system will collapse. And I'm like, just let the fucking system collapse.
Let it
maybe
burn,
build a better system. But the founders were like, maybe we just don't fuck over our whole economy, I guess. So
I guess.
So it was like narrowly applied and slowly rolled out. So it was like kids born on this date will be eligible for freedom by this date if all of these conditions are met, etc. And so Sojourner Truth was eligible to be emancipated in 1828, but the guy who owned her at the time, whose name was Dumont, said if she worked well, that he would free her a year early in 1827. Do you suppose he kept that promise?
I don't think he did.
No, you're right. He did not. No, he did not. No. He did not keep that promise. And so this just like speaks to me about her kind of selflessness. I'm not entirely sure what her thought process was here, but she was like, I can't just leave before the hardest work of the season is done. Initially, I was like, why would you do that for him? And I'm like, maybe it's not for him. Maybe it's for the other enslaved people she's working with.
She didn't want
to not have to do all of the labor. Yeah. So she stays through the fall for the hardest of the work. And then she takes some clothes and her baby in winter. And her baby, Sophia, who was very little, so she could carry her. And she makes a break for it. Once she leaves, she's off the property. She realized she did not have a plan of where to go. So she sits down and she feeds Sophia and is thinking about where she might be able to go. And she thinks of this guy, Levi Rowe, who she thinks will be nice to her and goes to his house. And I'm like, what a gamble. Thinks will be nice to her.
Right. It's a possibility. But I guess it is winter and you have an infant and you can't turn around. Oh, my God.
Yeah. And like, what are you going to do? You got to just take your best bet. At least she's in New York, where I think it was probably, you know, easier to throw a rock and hit an abolitionist's house than it would have been in the South. But
right. Anywhere else, but still.
But still a risk. Yeah. You don't know for sure that he's not going to just turn you back in. But her gamble paid off. She was a good judge of character. Levi was absolutely willing to help her. Unfortunately, he was dying, like actively dying on his deathbed.
Shit.
But at least he was nice and his wife was still alive. And so he was like, have my wife show you houses of other good people that we know will help you. And Sojourner Truth wound up going to the it's V-A-N and then W-A-G-N-E-R-S, but I think it would be von Wagner's.
That's thrown me for a loop.
Because von Wagners
Wagners.
I think it's gotta be von Wagners.
I like von Wagners, but you know.
The von Wagners. Yeah, they were nice people, the von whatevers. And they're like, yes, you can stay here. Absolutely. So Dumont shows up looking for her.
I was like, when's he coming back?
And he accuses her of running away. He's like, you ran away. To which Sojourner Truth said, no, I did not run away. I walked away by daylight, and all because you had promised me a year of my time. Oh, that's the kind of comeback that, like, I think of 3 days later.
Exactly.
To have that in the moment.
Just had that ready. Maybe she was walking and was like, when this fucker shows up, and I know he's going to.
That's true. She did have some time. She did have some time to think about it. Maybe she planned. But also, everybody who kind of knew her was like, you were struck by her presence and her ability to just, like, phrase things, her, like, turn of phrase. She was a very good orator, I think.
Wow.
So she might have also just had a knack. She refused to go with him, obviously, and also refused to let him take her baby. And he's getting feisty. So at this point, Isaac Isaac VW steps in, who's like the guy, the man of the house, I guess, and is like, listen, I do not dig the whole slavery thing. I don't participate. But if it'll get you the fuck out of my house, I will pay you for her.
Whoa.
Yeah. So von Wagner paid him for Sojourner Truth and for the baby, and he fucked off.
Isaac.
I love that he clearly tried to wait he was like, this is last resort because I'm buying a person and I feel not good about that.
Like, want to vomit over that, but had it in his back pocket, so that's good.
And it worked. And he and his wife were very clear, like, we paid for you, but we do not own you. You're a free woman. And I was like, man, it is nice to know that people like that existed, because sometimes I just think of these times. But this is the other reason that kind of goes to a discussion that you and I have had off the podcast about D.W. Griffith, which is like people who are like, well, they were just of their time. And you're like, okay, but there were other people at that time who were saying this is bullshit.
There were people who were human beings about it and saw the injustice and saw the cruelty. So what were you doing?
Yeah. So of the time, doesn't really do it for me. Sorry.
No.
Okay. So now we will get to the Mother's Day special portion of this. I mean, besides having already rescued her, Sophia, from slavery.
Right.
Already a super mom. But don't worry about it. She's going to do more. So heartbreakingly, when she left, she had to leave some of her other children with Dumont. And one of those children was a little boy named Peter. After the New York State Gradual Emancipation Act, some northern slave owners tried to get around it illegally by selling enslaved people to southern states, which did not have emancipation laws. And this was super illegal, as I said. I assume because you're just circumventing the law of one state by sending people to another. You're not supposed to do that. That's not how that works. And I'm sure most of them just assumed no one would catch them or give a shit.
Yeah, that they were operating under the assumption that no one cared.
Right. They're like, well, I don't care about these people. Why would anyone else? So Dumont is the guy who has Peter at the jump. That's who Sojourner Truth escaped from. He sells Peter to a guy who definitely does not get the award for best human, but may get the award for best name we've seen on the pod so far.
Ooh.
Eliezer Gedney.
Oh.
Eliezer. Hadn't heard that one before. Eleazer. Eliezer.
Oh, it really is Eliezer. Oh, okay.
Eliezer, I hardly know her. And I say best names so far because honestly, this one, we've got some stellar names going on, and I'm really excited about it.
Fantastic.
Eliezer Gedney was going to take Peter to England. And I don't know how that was legal, but selling them to someone in another state wasn't. But they did mention that there was a plan that he was going to bring him back in time for Peter to be emancipated, like his emancipation date. Eliezer was going to take Peter to England, but he but as far as New York City and decided Peter was too small to work for him. And maybe this is because Peter was 5 goddamn years old. But I'm sure that Peter was not the only 5-year-old that Eliezer had ever used for work. And so that implies to me that Peter was maybe small even for 5, which just really breaks my heart given some stuff later. This research made me cry fully several times. Just FYI. Also, my brain is really mean and pictures Peter, of course, as like out of central casting, like the sweetest. And I also picture him with glasses because Sojourner Truth wore glasses. So I like picture him as like a tiny little there's no way they would have given an enslaved boy glasses, but like
Right.
My brain is mean, again, as I said. So he's like the cutest little nerd, like, it makes me really sad. Even if he didn't look like that, though, it's sad. So Eliezer's like too small. He sells Peter to his brother, Solomon Gedney. So he's gone from Dumont to Eliezer Gedney to Solomon Gedney. And Solomon resold Peter again, illegally, to a man named Fowler, who was a wealthy plantation owner in Alabama and absolutely lives up to his name. It's spelled like chicken, like birds, fowl, and not foul, like Foul, but he's foul. Picture a stereotypical plantation owner from any like movie you've ever seen, and it's him. Sojourner Truth found out that Peter was sold illegally, and she literally marches on foot over to the Dumonts and confronts Dumont's wife, who was the one who was home, and is like, how dare you sell my child illegally? And Mrs. Dumont replied with a bunch of racist shit that you can read in the narrative of Sojourner Truth, but which I will not be repeating here. Basically, Sojourner Truth was like, I'm going to get my kid back. And Mrs. Dumont was like, with what? You don't even have any money. Like, no, you're not. And Sojourner Truth was like, watch me. She met somebody who told her to go to the Quakers. So she does. And they recommend that she take legal action. So Sojourner Truth, a Black woman in the 1820s, and by some accounts barefoot, goes into a courthouse and decides to use the law to fight to get her son back. Black women have plenty of trouble getting heard in court now, today. It is intimidating as fuck for anyone now, today. In 1828, when you cannot read and you maybe don't have any shoes on, this is the ballsiest thing. It's incredible.
To do in that
Yes.
moment. The bravery and the, okay, yeah.
And it doesn't sound like she ever had, any of the feelings I have, which is like, that must have been so anxiety inducing. That must have been like, she's just like, I'm doing what I got to do to get my kid back. Like,
protect my child.
So she shows up to the courthouse. She has no idea where to go and she cannot read. So she can't use signage to help her. So she asks around and gets directed and eventually finds the room where you make complaints to the grand jury. And she tells her story to the grand jury, which, again, takes so much composure and bravery. She's a good orator, so I'm sure she made a really compelling argument to them. This moment that she talks about in her memoir just illustrates how unfamiliar she was with this whole system and how brave she was to go in with this complete lack of exposure, because the lawyer says, you have to swear to us that it's your son. And she's like, duh, yes, obviously I swear that that's my son. Why the fuck do you think I'm here?
Why would I be here?
Just here for my health. Yeah. Here for fun as a black woman in 1828.
Putting myself
in the courthouse.
in this situation. Yeah, definitely.
Woo! Yeah. But, it's part of the legal system. You have to swear. You have to, take a legal oath to say, this is my son. And he's like, no, you have to swear on this book. And hands her a book that presumably is the Bible to, put her hand on and raise her right hand and take an oath. But she didn't know that that's how that works because, law and order wasn't a thing yet. And she doesn't have any exposure to the legal system. So she held the Bible up to her lips and spoke directly into it and said, I swear that this is my son. She doesn't know what taking a legal oath is. She's walking into this incredibly complex and intimidating scenario with no context and is, again, just like, I'm figuring it out because I'm going to get my kid.
That image alone has me a little already. Not going to hold it together, I don't think.
That's okay. This lawyer, the lawyer who told her to swear on the book, another great name. Apparently his name was Esquire Chip. Like, all the lawyers went by Esquire first, and then
right.
But I'm like, is it his last name? Is it his first name?
First?
I don't know, but I love Esquire Chip.
Esquire Chip.
I love that as a name. I don't necessarily love Esquire Chip, and you'll see why in a little while. But
yeah, I don't have high hopes for liking him, but
he does his job to a point, but he gets a little shitty at one point. Okay, so Esquire Chip, after getting her to swear, gives her a writ and says, go give this to the constable in New Paltz, which is the place that Solomon Gedney lives and is 9 miles away. So Sojourner Truth walks 9 miles and gives the writ to the constable, who proceeds to serve it on the wrong brother. One of the other Gedneys, not Eliezer, just the Gedneys are a plague on New Paltz, apparently. They're everywhere.
They can't swing a cat.
Without hitting a Gedney. Yeah. So wrong brother gets served. And Solomon, of course, being his brother, gets word and he yeets out. He's across the river before the sheriff realizes his mistake.
Jesus.
Yeah. So Solomon goes and talks to a lawyer on the other side of the river. And this lawyer very wisely advised him to get his ass to Alabama and get that kid back because he is at risk of being busted and getting put in prison for 14 years and getting $1,000 cash fine, which is like $33,000 today.
Well, at
not
least
a joke.
There was a repercussion, but I imagine it's
real
gonna be
consequences.
Real consequences, you guys. Okay.
I was actually really surprised. I was like, oh, what's the fun? What's the deal? Like,
Yeah.
you get 3 days in jail and like have to pay $1. Like, again, I'm just underestimating the people of the time en masse when there were clearly people who were like, this is really wrong. But I just am like, nope, I assume you're all dicks, which is unfair.
Is it?
Solomon, I don't know. So Solomon does indeed get his ass down to Alabama to bring Peter back. And he left in the fall. He comes back in spring. So it's a long, it's the old times. They didn't have steamships really yet. So it's a long journey. And he has all of these months with Peter to tell him lies and condition him to believe things that Solomon Gedney wants him to believe because he's 5, maybe 6 at this point. And instead of giving Peter back to Sojourner Truth when he gets back up to New York, he keeps him. And obviously Sojourner Truth doesn't want this because A, she's, like, that's my kid and I love him. But B, she's very worried that he's going to be tortured as revenge against her.
Of course.
So she goes back to Esquire Chip and he's like, first off, let's get the right person served this time, shall we?
First of all,
and so
how
they
about
do.
that?
Yes.
Okay.
They do. They get Solomon served, and he appeared in court, and he made bond, which was $600. So either he got a hell of a loan, or he was making a lot of money off the backs of enslaved people. My guess is the second. This hearing on the matter isn't going to be for months. And Sojourner Truth's like, are you kidding me? Like, he could do anything with my kid in this time. Like, he could run off with him. He could kill him. Like, he could, he could do any number of things and get, my son will be gone again. And then
Right.
what do I do? This is where Esquire Chip lost me.
God damn it.
Yeah. Esquire Chip is like, well, if he runs off with your kid, he has to forfeit his $600 bond and you get $300 of it. So, like, at least you get $300 out of it. Like, what's the
Chip.
problem?
See why I don't have faith in the...
Exactly. And Sojourner Truth, understandably, is like, Esquire Chip, you fuck. I don't want $300. I want my actual human child back, please. That is what I would like. I'm sure she didn't call him a fuck, but I wish she had. And Esquire Chip was like, sorry, lady, them's the breaks. And also, you should be more grateful and patient. And with grace and composure that we still expect of Black women in any circumstance and regardless of level of stress, Sojourner Truth did not slap the ever-loving shit out of Esquire Chip.
The strength
The strength.
of these women. I just...
And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google, like, the issue of Black women being told at work that they are being too loud and too aggressive and things when they're basically just speaking like I am right now, but being assertive. Or look at stories about Black women who have been present when their significant others have been shot in front of them and the composure that they maintain in order to not be then murdered themselves by the police. That's what I'm talking about.
It's unending.
So,
They're
it
expected
is.
to carry this country on their goddamn backs and be quiet about it.
So she doesn't slap Esquire Chip somehow. But she also was like, I'm not listening to you. I am going to try and get my child back now, please. So she finds another lawyer named Demain, and he was like, all right, give me $5 and I will have your kid in 24 hours. And he's so confident that he'll get him back because he's planning to send this apparently famous guy to go get him. And this apparently famous guy is named, this is name number 3, maybe my favorite. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Here we go.
1828. Maddie Stiles.
Pull through, Maddie.
Pull through Maddie Stiles. He sounds like a Chet Hanks style rapper. Like,
Oh my God.
that's what Maddie Stiles evokes for me. And I cannot believe that's the first Hanks family reference I have made on the podcast, and it wasn't even Colin. I'm so mad.
Oh my God. That can't be true.
No, I haven't mentioned Colin Hanks a single time. I know it's shocking because I mentioned Colin Hanks in basically every conversation. But no, not so far.
Frankly,
not on the
don't
podcast.
believe this. I'm going to go back through.
Go back. Fact check.
You go back
once.
and you look.
I should start a jar. Like I put a penny in the jar every time I talk about Colin Hanks or Hannibal, and then we use it to get something fun.
Something fun for us.
A pizza party.
A pizza
At the end of the...
with that Colin Hanks money.
Or we could like give it to a charity we think he'd approve of.
Like, yeah. Okay, that's much better than personal pizza party. I still haven't opened my Hanks kerchief. I want it pristine. And I don't know why I have a problem.
We love Colin Hanks. And then, so in the book, in the narrative of Sojourner Truth, literally, it just says, Demain said he'd send, quote, the famous Maddie Stiles. And Maddie Stiles is in quotes. So it's like,
What?
he'd send the famous Maddie Stiles to go get him. And I'm like, who?
Maddie Stiles.
I really tried to find anything on Maddie Stiles. I was like, was he a famous bounty hunter? Like, it was 1828. There was press. Like, I figured I could find something. Nothing about Maddie Stiles, and I'm so sad. I was like, this is a rabbit hole I am ready to commit to for like 3 days. I want to know about Maddie Stiles, but I couldn't find anything. So if anybody knows,
please
anything
let
about
us
Maddie
know,
Stiles,
because now I need to know.
every possible detail that anybody has about Maddie Stiles. Anyway, Sojourner Truth tells Demain she doesn't have any money. And so, again, she is advised to go to the Quakers. He's like, they'll give you money. Don't worry about it. So, again, 10 miles away. So she walks 10 miles to go to the Quakers. She gets money. They actually give her more than she needs. And she gives it all to Demain because she's like, I just want my kid. And people are like, you should keep some of it and like buy clothes and shoes and stuff for yourself. And she's like, I don't want any of that. I just want my child. So she gives him all of it. And he says, great, I will have him in 24 hours. But Sojourner Truth didn't know what 24 hours was because she has not been educated that way. So why would she? She doesn't know that that means this time tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Tomorrow,
Like she has
yeah.
no concept of what that 24 hours means. And so she showed up multiple times that same day asking if Peter was there yet, which just like breaks my heart because it reminds me of my clients that used to call me like multiple times a day. It's a different situation because they had mental health issues and they didn't remember they'd called me. But also like just in this highly stressful situation, you just like check in a lot. I can just feel it. I just feel her.
No,
like,
I feel it in my chest right now. Like
like her anxiety about it and her just like, I want this to be over. I want to see him. I want to see that he's okay.
yeah, of course. She's nope. Okay, you have to keep going or I'm going to lose it.
Okay. Well, and I'm getting to the rougher part. So eventually he's like, no, in the morning. He won't be here till morning. And so she shows up first thing the next morning and he's like, morning lasts till noon. And I'm like, dude, give her
the time. Ass.
Like, and when I first read this and him putting her off, I was like, there's no way he's going to get this kid back. Like he's ripping her off. There's just no way.
Big time.
But she comes back later and Peter's there. Maddie Stiles came through.
Maddie Stiles.
Yeah. Maddie Stiles got him. Big ups to Maddie Stiles.
The notorious bounty hunter
Bounty hunter / rapper.
Bounty hunter
/ white rapper.
White rapper of 1830.
28.
28, yeah. We all know him.
We all know he's famous. The famous Maddie Stiles. I like to think that he just calls himself the famous Maddie Stiles, and it's like that's just free PR. People just assume in 1828 you can't Google him and find out if he's famous or not. Apparently he's famous.
Ooh.
Be so easy to build your own lore in those days.
I'm picturing Juiced.
No, Maddie Stiles couldn't ever dream of touching Juice.
Stiles could never.
No, Juiced is, as you said, an entity. I think that is untouchable by any mortal. And I do believe Maddie Stiles is mortal. Maybe Maddie Stiles still walks among us. Who knows?
He's here with me right now.
House is haunted by Maddie Stiles.
Every once in a while I hear bad rap lyrics out of the ghostly mouth of a white man.
Like 1828 rap, though.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad we had that little moment of levity because this is where it gets really sad. So,
okay.
Peter's there.
Okay.
But he doesn't remember her at all because he was too little. And so when she showed up at court for him and he saw her, he just was terrified and he started clinging to Solomon Gedney and was like begging them not to take him away from him because, as I said, Solomon Gedney, yes, had a long time to talk to Peter. And he was like, viewed him as this man who had come down and saved him from this horrible condition in Alabama. Never mind the fact he was the one who sold him there in the first place, but Peter probably doesn't even know or remember that. So he sees Solomon Gedney as like his hero and is just clinging to him and begging the court not to take him away from him. And they're like asking him questions about scars that he has, and he keeps like looking at Gedney to be like, am I answering right? Like clearly coached, talked to, he probably also was like conditioning him the whole time. Like there's this woman who wants to come and take you away. And she says she's your mother, but not, but the court sided with Sojourner Truth anyway, and declared that Peter be given to her, quote, having no other master, no other controller, no other conductor, but his mother. And with that order, Sojourner Truth became the first Black woman in the United States to successfully sue a white man for a family member's freedom.
What? That is not where my heart thought we were going. So I'm... Wow. The first.
I know, right? And because that's so specific, it's like the first Black woman to successfully sue a white man for a family member's freedom. I was like, there must have been more Black women or other Black people before who had successfully, like, I tried to look up more about all of those specifics, but I couldn't really find anything. Most of the results that I got back were about her. But there were mentions of Elizabeth Freeman, who was an enslaved woman who successfully sued for her own freedom, and Henrietta Wood, who was one of very few people writ large to successfully sue for reparations, which was interesting.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to mention them too, because I didn't find exactly what I was looking for, but I was like, well, we'll shout out those two ladies as well.
I'm glad you did. I'm feeling woefully ignorant and not going to beat myself up about it. This is just great. Now I know all these
No.
things.
And like Henrietta Wood definitely rings a bell to me. So I think I learned about her, but like I've forgotten most of what I learned in any history class ever. So that's
oh boy,
just,
you're telling me.
I was shocked that I was right about Sojourner Truth being more, I learned about her more in the context of suffrage than I did in the context of like slavery and abolition. And so when I was first thinking about her, I was like, oh yeah, she was in the suffrage movement. And then I was like, have I gotten that mixed up? Like, am I just forgetting or like making up an entire different memory? I was proud that I remembered that right.
I'm proud when I remember any historical fact correctly.
I'm proud when I remember anything right at all these days.
Where do I live?
Who am I?
And I also have to like remember and not be so goddamn hard on myself because we are so notoriously bad in this country of giving,
Yes.
especially Black women, any sort of shout out or, yeah, you know what I mean.
So once she got him back, they did manage to talk him down and talk him around a little bit. And they calmed him down and explained everything to him. And apparently he said, well, you do look like my mother used to, which made me cry when I read it the first time. And eventually he let her look him over, and he was just covered in scars and injuries. Because, as I said, Fowler was a stereotypically absolutely horrendous Southern plantation owner who beat and whipped the absolute hell out of this small 5 to 6 year old boy. And she was like overwhelmed seeing all of this and was like, my sweet boy, like, how did you bear it? How did you bear it all? And he said, oh, this is nothing, Mama. You should see what they did to other people.
Oh my God, I can't. Okay.
And then proceeded to say, okay, this is the part that every time I've read it aloud, I've cried. I'm going to try not to.
Okay.
Proceeded to say that sometimes after he was whipped or beaten, he would have blood dripping down all over him and he would crawl under the porch to escape and his back would stick to the boards. Whew. Okay. Nope. I'm not fully crying. I just choked up a little bit. I'm okay. I had to like put my computer down and just cry for a minute. I think I texted you at that point.
Yeah, you did. Oh, man. We are despicable.
Yeah. And 5 is like barely.
You're a baby.
You're so a baby at 5. You really are. You're so little and you're so like wide-eyed and excitable.
Oh. To have that be how she receives him after all this time when she said, and then the white sheriff fucked it up.
Yeah. I mean, the lack of attention to detail and urgency. Yeah. And I wish I could tell you something amazing about the rest of Peter's life, but very little is known about it. And the little that is known isn't necessarily cheerful. According to Nell Irvin Painter, who wrote a book called Sojourner Truth, A Life, a Symbol, Peter had a troubled life, not surprisingly.
Yeah.
And he wound up on a whaling vessel in Nantucket and eventually was lost at sea. So that's all we know, really, of what happened to Peter. But Sojourner Truth lived until 1883. She was like 86 when she died. She was like, I'm 6 feet tall and I'm living forever, which is amazing.
And deal with it.
And obviously she went on to become an incredible activist and inspire massive groups of people to enact change. And I'm sure is looking down on the United States right now and being like, really, guys?
Really? After
really
everything? Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. So that's it. I think my good mom story, as I said, might be more upsetting and sad in some ways than more depressing overall, maybe.
Overall, I'd say, and like the, what she was facing, like on all sides. But damn, I knew so little about Sojourner, and I'm going to want to read those books now and educate myself more. But just having this story alone, wow, the resiliency is beyond me.
It's going to be an interesting balance to yours because, as we said, both of our stories are about moms who are going to great lengths to protect their kids. But Sojourner Truth went about it in the most kind of rule-abiding way possible, like using the law and working within the system of the law, which is for anyone an accomplishment, but for a Black woman at that time in particular, an incredible accomplishment that, as I said, just took so much bravery and composure. And then your mom worked outside the law, as we'll see next
Oh,
week.
yeah.
Or not next week, tomorrow.
Yeah, and like you said, she took all the correct avenues. How terrifying it must have been, but she was like, I'm just gonna do it for him.
And
Whew.
she was following the advice of other people too,
Yeah.
which in it of itself, honestly, kind of takes a lot of strength to not just be like, well, I'm going, 'cause
Yeah.
I'm sure she had that thought, like, well, what am I going to do? That panic of like, how do I get it? What do I do? What do I do? And I'm sure she was ready to go down there herself if she had to, but she thankfully that it actually worked out, because she could have also been caught in a legal battle for years only to have it fail and then seen nothing from it. It's amazing. And I think honestly does just speak to what her presence must have been like to have convinced all of these people to help her, and to her passion for her kid, and like it must have just poured out of her,
Yep.
and she must have just been a really compelling human being to be in a room with,
Seriously.
So that's it for the good mom portion of this. And we will do our patron shout out right now, and then I will give you a little bit of an idea of what's coming up next.
What is to come?
But first, thank you very, very much, Jeff Darcy, for joining our paid patrons.
Thank you, Jeff.
We appreciate you. We don't know who you are, which is really crazy. Like, we just appreciate that. It's crazy that people who don't know us, or that we at least think we don't know. Maybe I do know him and I'm being embarrassing.
Oh, no.
Jeff, if I know you, I'm so sorry.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. We love you. And we really appreciate it. And thank you again extra, because you pushed us over our goal, as we said, of getting all of our monthly expenses covered. So thanks, Jeff.
Didn't imagine it would happen this quickly. So amazing, you guys.
Big time. As we said, keep spreading the word, tell your friends, tell your enemies, and join us tomorrow for the second part of our Mother's Day special, where Larkin will be telling us a true crimey story about not so good mom, Leonarda Cianciulli. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did. Cianciulli.
If you don't already know the story, we are excited to introduce you to it. And it'll be an episode you don't want to listen to during lunch or dinner or breakfast or any of the meals of the day. Just
11Z's.
Second breakfast. Unless you're a hobbit, because they have pretty strong stomachs. They could although they're also little tender babies. I don't know if they've ever heard about such a thing happening. Some of them have seen some shit, but not shit like this.
Nope.
So if you want to know what would horrify a hobbit, join us tomorrow. Oh my God, I've made this too long, and now I'm going off the rails. I've talked for too long.
If you want to hear about what would appall a hobbit,
what would make Samwise Gamgee straight up puke?
Straight up vom. Well, he's seen worse, I think, probably.
Yeah, actually, Sam's probably the one that would hold up the best.
He might not puke, but he might shake his
He would
head
be
sadly.
upset.
Yeah. We've gone off the rails.
Yes, we have. This is just this isn't a story that Bilbo should tell to the kids. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all
No,
we're
it's
saying.
not.
And now we're going to shut up so we can record it.
Yay. Right. Tune in tomorrow for the creep show.
Bye.
Bye.